This is the first video for the lab portion of BEH383 for week 1. By the time you've gotten here, you should have gone through all of the lecture materials. So that's the readings, the PowerPoints associated with the readings. There's a lecture associated with that. We saw the video with the PowerPoint. I think there were 3 of those. There were practice problems. So there is a video to follow along with, work out the standard deviation by hand, do that on your own. Upload that to Blackboard for participation points. And finally, there was that quiz. So when all of that is done, you're going to go ahead and move into the lab portion, which is what we're doing right here. So if you missed some of that, go back and take a look. Make sure you have all that taken care of. The lab portion will assume that you've already mastered all of that content. Also, keep in mind that the lecture content is due on day 4. And so you want to have that done before you move on. You can't go back later in the week and do it. It'll be too late. You won't be able to turn it in. So lab for week 1, our main focus here is to introduce you to SPSS, probably your first exposure to this software. A lot of people are really intimidated by this program. They're not used to it. If you've used Microsoft Excel, there's a bit of a spreadsheet format that'll be somewhat familiar. If you're not used to Microsoft Excel, this may seem very alien to you. We're going to go through it slowly, one step at a time. We'll look at key terms from the software. We'll talk more about levels of measurement, how to create variables, and how to enter that data. So in this PowerPoint, we're going to walk through I'll give you some screenshots. We'll talk through theory and vocabulary, and a separate video associated with the classwork assignment. I'm going to put a screen of SPSS up and kind of show you in real time where to click, what to do, so you can follow along exactly with me, and hopefully it won't be too intimidating. You can pause and rewind and so forth as you need to. If you're in the hybrid version of the class, we'll actually be doing this. This will be the face-to-face portion of the class. So we'll go through these notes, we'll go through the as well as the classwork together, answer any questions, and you'll still do the homework portion, the SPSS assignment 1. You'll do that on your own, and that's really the main assignment for the week that you'll complete and turn in. If you're in the online only version of the course, of course this is the only resource for the lab portion. If you're in the hybrid, you are certainly welcome to watch the videos as well as a refresher or to get yourself up to speed beforehand, but you're not required to. Okay, so SPSS key terms. In order, we're going to be using SPSS a lot all throughout this class and in BEH385. So you could think about this as 2 classes or as one 16-week class. We're going to use it every single week. So it's just critical that you can use the program well, develop comfort with it. You need to have your own copy of it at home. I think I mentioned that several places on the website. Some people will think that they're just going to use it in the computer lab, but sometimes the lab's not available. Sometimes our schedules conflict between the main campus and ops. You might get there and find that the lab is closed or the computers aren't working properly, and that's really not an excuse. You would still be counted late even if it was an issue along those lines. You want to have your own copy of the software working well on your system at home, your laptop, your desktop, whatever you can use whenever you want to work on your assignments. So we'll need to understand some of the key terms in SPSS. Basically, in general, SPSS has 2 different what are called views and 2 main windows that'll be active at the same time. We'll show what we mean by that. The 2 main windows are the data editor window and the viewer window. Within the data editor window, you'll find the data view and the variable view. So I'll show you what that looks like. So when you open up SPSS, again, I'm going to show you still shots here, but I will actually have a separate video where I open up in real time and you can see where I'm clicking it. Basically, there should be this button somewhere that will open up SPSS, which will look something like this. And you can look down here. It's going to say, do you want to open existing data source? You'd actually hit cancel so you can kind of mess around in here. But there's data view and variable view. So remember we said that there are 2 different views and then 2 main windows. So data view, variable view. In this case, we're going to tell it to type in data. I think I said hit cancel. It'll actually do the same thing. If you hit cancel, it'll just let you type in data, or you can tell it type in data. Anyway, you'll click on that. And then you're going to see data view and variable view, and there's 2 different tabs on here. So you can actually switch back and forth. So data view kind of looks like Microsoft Excel, if you're familiar with that. Variable view is a little bit different. So before you could enter any data into the program, you have to create the variables. So in Microsoft Excel, you can just start typing in whatever you want, wherever you want. It doesn't work that way here. You have to create the variable and create all and set all the settings so it knows what you're doing, what kind of information you're trying to input. So the default is data view, so you click on variable view. So data view, variable view. So notice it says name, type, width, decimals. This is all the attributes of the variable. In this case, variables are in the rows, variable 1, variable 2. In the data view, the variables are in the columns, variable 1, variable 2, and the rows are your observations, or your people. Okay. So now, because the column changed, these are all the different things you have to set when you create a new variable. You don't have to change all of them. Sometimes the default works, sometimes it doesn't apply to the variable that you're working with. But some of them you really do have to set, otherwise SPSS won't process your information correctly. So these are the ones that are basically the most important. Name is critical, type is critical, label is often used, values is often used, and then measure is critical. So name and actually label, these are the easy ones. These basically refer to the name of the variable. So when you create a new variable, you will name it something. And then the label, all this is it's just a longer description. So this is good if you have a lot of similar names, or for any instance where the name you give it isn't clear enough. You can give it a much longer name. Here you can't use spaces, you can't use special symbols. And here you can use spaces and symbols and things and create a much longer explanation. And that way you won't get mixed up and lose track of what the different variables are if the names aren't descriptive enough. So let's say we wanted to make a variable representing annual household income. So we'd click on the first cell, and this whole line would light up. That'll be yellow. Again, some of these are going to have defaults in here, but here it says unknown. This is blank. This says none. And you would write the word income, and as soon as you press enter, most of these things are going to get filled in. So you just enter something there, click enter, then all this stuff will pop up. Again, I'll show you this in a different video in real time. You could give it a more descriptive label by clicking here on label. So income, that could mean different things. Annual, it can mean individual, household income, monthly income, lifetime income. So here you could say annual household income, and now it's more descriptive. So if you forgot what income referred to, you could look over here and it would remind you. If you want to delete the variable, you just click on the number 1, click, and then hit the delete button on your keyboard, and the whole row will just disappear. Okay. So there's some basics. Before we can really move on and do much else with your variables, we have to say something about scales of measurement, aka levels of measurement. So this is going to refer over here to the measure option where it says unknown. You need to set it, but you don't know how to set it until we explain all this. So in here, in the textbook, I should say, there's a section on page 4 called scales of measurement. When I say levels of measurement, it means the exact same thing. Just don't confuse that with levels of the independent variable. That's something entirely different. So levels of measurement or scales of measurement. And SPSS, it just uses the term measure. So right here where it says measure unknown, you have to set it to something. That's what it's talking about, level of measurement or scale of measurement. There are really technically 4 different levels of measurement. Each one is more precise than the one that comes before it. So nominal, there is very little information. It's just groups and there's no order. Ordinal level variables have an order, but the intervals aren't even. Interval has an order and the intervals are even. And then ratio has everything. It has an order. The intervals are even, and there's an absolute 0. The 0 means something, which means you can meaningfully multiply and divide the values. In SPSS, they condense the bottom two. Instead of having interval and ratio, they just turn them both into scale. Sometimes people will just say continuous and categorical, and they'll refer to nominal variables as being categorical, and they'll just call all of these continuous, although maybe not the best way to think of it, but I'll see these terms used a lot, continuous and categorical. You'll probably hear me using those at later points during the class. But SPSS is going to refer to these three right here: nominal, ordinal, and scale, which refers to interval and ratio. Okay? So when you create a new variable in SPSS, the default is scale, but to change on it, you just click on it and click whichever one you want. So scale, ordinal, or nominal. So scale, ordinal, nominal. SPSS also wants to know the variable type. Okay, so that's this button right here. And that refers to the type of data you're going to enter. So not the level of measurement in this case, but what are you going to type in there? Is it going to be numbers? Is it going to be a date? Is it going to be money? Or string refers to letters, just typing words in. It wants to know, so when you put values in there, it matters because it needs to know what it means, and different computations will work with some types of variables and not other types. So to change that, you click here, and this window will pop up, and then you pick the one you want. So the default is numeric. In most cases, we're just going to be using numeric. But sometimes, the only other one we'll probably use, maybe we'll use one of these sometime, but really the only one we're going to use is called string. And a string just means it's letters. Now, if you import data from maybe an Excel file and it has words written in, it's going to automatically make them string, by the way. It won't make them numeric. And if you change it from string to numeric while the words are still in there, they're all going to disappear. You'll lose all those data. So make sure you only change it when they're just numbers. Okay, so usually string variables are used for information that you don't intend to analyze. So for example, a lot of times I'll have a participant ID number or maybe a name of the person or school or church or something that I'm analyzing, and I'm not going to analyze that particular variable. I'm not going to find the average name of the student. I'm going to look at their average test score or something. So I want to keep track of it. I want that information there so I can organize them and see who's who, but I'm not going to actually analyze their name. So it can just be a string variable. If you want to analyze groups that are described by words, then we're going to code it. So instead of just using a string variable and typing in the group name, we code it 1 equals this, 2 equals this. I'll show you how to do that. And then every group is going to have a numeric value. That way it can still be a numeric type variable and all of the analyses will work that we want to do. So how do we do that? Well, let's suppose that you have gotten information about the your participant's political affiliation, and there's three choices: Republican and Democrat and Independent. So maybe you ask them with which political party do you most identify, and they checked a box or circled one, and you want to put that into your data set. Well, you'd create a new variable, maybe call it party and label it political party, something like that. But now I have to decide what level of measurement we should select. Is it going to be nominal, ordinal, scale? And we have to decide what variable type we should select. Is it going to be string or is it going to be numeric? Well, you could make it a string variable and just type in the word Republican, Democrat, or Independent, but you wouldn't be able to use that variable in certain analyses. Like you might say, are Republicans, Democrats, or Independents more likely to invest a certain amount of money in the stock market, maybe? And now you can't do it because you made a string variable, and SPSS won't even recognize it sometimes. So you have to recode it later. It's better to make it a numeric variable and then code it so you can use it in other analyses. So we're going to keep the variable type as numeric, and then you'll have it set to nominal, right? Because they're just groups. There's no order to the political parties. And then under values, we're going to code it. So you'd click on values, and then a box like this would come up, right? And then we have to tell it what the labels mean. So if we have Republican, Democrat, and Independent, we could say that a 1 equals Republican, so we'd put a 1, the word Republican, and click add. And then it's going to pop up over here. We do that for all three of them and then click OK. And now we have it set, and it knows that 1 equals Republican, 2 equals Democrat, 3 equals Independent, and whenever we type one of those numbers, SPSS is smart and realizes that we're referring to one of those groups.